The tricky thing with this is the confusion with what the question is asking, right? Because sometimes it says you have to do things in an order. Sometimes it says like do the order that's meant to be. So I just want to clarify a few things there, right? The first thing is, if we take this order of this equation over here, essentially there is a sort of defined order which the textbook gives you. And the order goes like this. We say we do the horizontal dilations first. Right? And the way that we do a horizontal dilation is that we multiply by A with all of the x components that you see, okay? What's the effect though? So the effect, they say, is a scale factor. This is a scale factor of 1 on A. So that's something you have to be careful with the horizontal dilation. So how does it change particular x values? Well, actually we divide by A over here, right? So let me give you an example of that. I think the best way to see it is visually. So the example I'm going to use is on a parabola. Here's my parabola, here's the point 1, 1, okay? Nothing too fancy going on there. I'm going to introduce a new parabola now. I'm going to introduce this parabola. And this is what we call a horizontal dilation, right? Why do we call this a horizontal dilation? Because, as you can see, it's kind of been shrunk in. And because you're multiplying by a number here, what number am I multiplying by? I'm multiplying by 3. What's the effect on this point? Well, I'm dividing the x value by 3, right? Can you see that? Okay. My question is though, how do I make this bigger, right? How do I stretch this out? Well, you go the other way, right? So for example, if I now make this y equals to 1 on 3 x all squared, can you see how it gets wider, right? So now what's going to happen to this point? Well, this point is going to be multiplied by 3, right? So horizontal dilations, the tricky thing is that these are kind of in reverse. You multiply by A, but the scale factor, we say, is 1 on A, right? So you're essentially dividing by A for that one, okay? The next one is horizontal translations. Right, and so this is when I say, okay, I'm going to take f of x plus b. So we'll get rid of these parabolas going everywhere. Let's get rid of these ones. And let's look at this one. So what's happened to that same point now, right? So when you think about this value, it depends on whether you're like adding or subtracting. So I've got -4 over here right now. Where does this point go? Well, this point is actually going to be 5 units to the right now. So if you add in a 5 over here, boom, that's the same point, okay? So yeah, think about how it's a shift of this value, but we have to be careful with those positives and negatives. Yeah. Does that make sense? Right? Yeah. So it's a shift of b, depending on which direction you're going. So rather than trying to remember like an equation for that, I'm just going to say shifting by b for the x value. So the horizontal ones will always be for the x values. The vertical ones will always be for the y values, right? Okay.
Yeah, but even if it's like x plus b.
Would you write x plus b? Is that how you'd say it?
Or like, say if it's like in the actual equation, like x plus 4, like 4 to the left.
So if this is the equation here.
Like, yeah, we
Yep.
instead of going like the positive way. Like,
Yeah, well, let's look at it, right? So if we made, because it's negative, it's going to the right 4 units, right? If I make this a positive now, where does it go? It goes to the left, right? So the new point would actually be going left 4 units. What's 1 minus 4? This is for the x value now, right? So I'm shifting this 4 units to the left. 1 minus 4 should be -3, right? So the confusing thing with trying to remember all of these is that sometimes things work in the opposite way that you expect them, right? So you're adding 4 here, but what happens graphically is that that's moving left 4 units, okay? So that's just something to be aware of. The vertical ones, they make a bit more sense in the sense that they work how you expect them, right? So the next order is we take vertical dilations, right? So that's when you multiply the whole thing by k f of x. And so that one works how you'd expect, because if I get rid of these points, and I'm going to look at this one now, right? So you can see this is our vertical dilation, kind of stretching it up a little bit. And so like I said, the vertical dilations and translations affect the y values, right? So you say, okay, well, I'm going to multiply the y value by 2. That's just going to become 1, 2, like you'd expect. So what are we doing here? We're multiplying the y value by k, right? And last one, vertical translations. So that's when we're shifting up by this c value over here, so f of x plus c. And that again works how you'd expect, right? Because we say, okay, well, let's go to this. You can shift up or down, obviously. So I've got y equals to x squared minus 5 over here. Boop. And that same value, I'm going to move it down 5 units. So 1 minus 5, that becomes negative, 1 minus 5. Yeah, that's negative 4. There you go. And so that's shifting it down. And you can do the same for shifting up and down.